said I love you. Hey, what's up? It's Dan, and I'm actually recording a second video. I truly didn't think I was gonna make another video. Um, yeah, but I really do appreciate all the support and nice comments I got on the first one. Um, you know, I got I got a lot of nice feedback and comments on it, but there's like two or three comments that like really meant a lot to me. Um, and I got like a really nice email from someone. And yeah, it just means a lot that people enjoyed it because I know it's not the most interesting stuff, and it's you probably from that video you probably didn't get better as an artist right away, but I truly do believe those ideas and concepts I talked about is something that it instills into your brain, and you'll get you will see improvements in your work down the road. It's one of those things. It's like you don't get results instantly, but if you start thinking about those ideas and concepts and like theory that I was talking about, that like it really will improve your work down the road, or it did for me at least. And yeah, and so I kind of will, I guess, a little heads up. This video is probably going to be pretty long. Actually, hopefully not too long. Um, it's not going to be a lot of like 3D. It's mostly going to be me talking about my thought process. Yeah, and like that's something that like I just want to mention beforehand. Don't expect to like learn any like 3D techniques from this. It's mostly going to be like my thought process behind these images. And for me, I mean, uh, there's a lot of technical videos out there. There's a lot of tutorials out there that you can go watch. These videos that I'm making, I kind of, not to be cheesy, but I wanted to make videos that I wish I had, 2-3 years ago, or maybe even like a year ago. You know, there's hundreds of courses and hundreds of tutorials teaching you how to do different things, but very rarely do you come across someone that's just talking about 3D and just talking about things that like no one's talking about in 3D. And maybe it's because everyone already knows these things. I don't think it to be the case, but yeah, and like I enjoy talking about these topics. Sorry, that was all like super vague, but yeah. And then also I wanted to talk about because people, well, I don't know if I said this publicly, but a lot of people ask me in like Discord DMs or emails or whatever, like, hey, like, are you gonna keep making videos? Or like, oh man, like you should make a course, or like, oh man, you should, do you give lessons or stuff like that? Which I still don't believe those are real people. Those were AI bots sent to just like boost my ego. No, but I mean, I do appreciate people asking that. Maybe down the road, I feel like I have a lot to learn, and like I want more experience before I would do anything like that. Also, like anytime someone is selling a course, it just sounds like a scam. But yeah, I never want to do something like that. And yeah, and so with YouTube, I'm probably gonna keep these videos pretty low effort. Low effort in terms of like, there's no script. I have 5 notes written down here that are super vague. Yeah, and like hopefully this takes me like a day or two to record, and then I upload it. And yeah, like if when I was kind of like justifying like should I spend the time to make this video, um, once again, if it truly just helps like one or two people, it's already like good enough for me. Um, and also, even if this isn't helpful for anyone, I think it'll be really cool to look back like in 5 or 10 years and be like, man, I was so shit, or like, man, like, why did I do this, or like, why did I put that there, or like stuff like that. I think it'll be really cool to like document this stuff. And yeah, and I think, man, I truly do believe like YouTube is going to be almost like standard for a lot of people. And what I mean by that is like kind of the standard right now. Like everyone has social media, right? Like you don't. I mean, I know for a fact there's artists out there that are working at probably like those crazy studios like Weta or ILM or wherever, and like they probably don't. They might have like 3 followers on Facebook or something, or whatever, or 3 friends on Facebook, and like they don't give a shit about social media, and because they don't have to, it's because they're the fucking best. Like they don't have to really network, or they don't have to share their work. Like their works in like movie theaters and stuff. Like that's their portfolio, is like the IMDb list or whatever that list is called, right? Like, and it kind of, social media does feel like a chore, sort of. You have to network and you have to get yourself out there and stuff. And I think YouTube is just gonna be part of that. Everyone has a YouTube channel these days. Anyone can have a platform and talk about stuff. And yeah, I might as well do it. If I have time. Yeah. And yeah, so expectations for this video. It's gonna be a lot of talking, a lot of different topics. It's kind of like last video. If something comes up, I'll talk about it. Um, it's mostly, I probably won't even open up a 3D application in this video. One, the scene file is actually, it's not even that heavy. It's just there's not much to learn from it, and that's kind of something I realize is like, uh, you know, growing up as an artist, or like not growing up, sorry, like starting out as an artist, and then like year after year, like I feel like everyone went through that phase of like what app are you using, or what camera are you using, or what paintbrush are you using, right? And it's like people tell you, oh, that stuff doesn't matter, and like part of you is like, oh yeah, like the tools don't matter, but like part of you inside's like, man, like they're just gatekeeping it, or like they don't want me to get as good as them, and like eventually you kind of grow out of that, and like you start to realize, or for me it was like, I remember I bought a I don't remember. Oh, I bought like a really expensive monitor that I was like, oh, this is gonna change the game. Like, it has like, it's perfectly color calibrated, and it's an ultra wide monitor, and I thought like, this is gonna make my work better, and it's gonna make me work faster or better. And like, it didn't really change much in my workflow. Like, I do love this monitor. Actually, I still have this monitor. But that was like really a turning point for me. It was like, yeah, like these tools really don't matter, or like your peripherals, or like whatever you're using doesn't really matter. Like, to a certain degree, obviously, like if you were only using MS Paint, you might struggle. But I've seen there's this crazy guy on Twitter that like creates like these crazy paintings in MS Paint. But yeah, and like kind of when you move past that stage, for me at least, yeah, the tools don't matter. It's all about what you know. I kind of wanted to know everyone's process. How did you get to that result? What was your thought process? What was either your, what's the breakdown for this project? And a lot of breakdowns for projects are pretty shit. Like, people will post a clay render. I'm guilty of this. We'll post a clay render and be like, breakdown for the project. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with a clay render? Like, that does absolutely nothing. Or like showing your AOVs and like, here's the breakdown for the image. It's like, sure, you can learn a little bit from AOVs, but like, that's not really a breakdown. And like, even like a video like this, I think it's a little bit better than that stuff, which is why I'm making it. But like, a true breakdown for a project like is a project in itself almost. And you really need to record your whole process, and maybe I'll do that one day, because that's something that I wish I had. I want to watch someone from start to finish work on a project, and like showing someone failing for an hour and a half is probably gonna be boring to watch, but it's probably important to see that where your brain's at, and like, okay, I tried, like, and this happens all the time, where like you try something for hours, and you feel like you wasted your whole day, but it's you definitely learned a lot, or you learned how to not do something, or you'll never waste your time doing that again. Yeah, and stuff like that's like important, I think. And so yeah, like this I guess let's hop into this project. So if you haven't seen this project already, this was one of, I think, 5 different images. That's like pretty much, they're all like zoom in of like different types of clothes with like stains on them. And like the slogan for like this ad campaign was "Messy Eater," and like, I mean, like, I can talk about this project. Certain specifics I can't talk about, or like I know what I'm not allowed to talk about, which is like, not that this project is like super secret, like, or anything. I mean, I did have fun working on this, and I do appreciate it, but it's not like, this is not like a Marvel movie or something, or like there's no like NDA signed or nothing like that. But yeah, like, I don't want to piss anybody off, I guess. And yeah, and so, if you can't already tell, this image is pretty straightforward. This is supposed to be like a zoom in of like a spot, like on a suit. You have like the tie here, the collar here, and then like, this is the main part of the image, this ketchup stain. Pretty cool. This was done in Tyflow. And like, I'll talk, more about this later. I guess like the interesting aspects, like this stuff here, like none of this is like there is a shader applied, obviously, but like this is all geometry. All these like hairs and stuff, and like, which I'll show more of this later. Yeah, some like really cool details. Really happy to how this turned out. Yeah. And I have some crops here, and we'll just go through these. I mean, this drop looks really nice. I really enjoyed, like, this is like a really nice, like, I forget what they call it, like where your eye draws, or not your eye, not this draws your attention, but man, there's a word for this. I forget. I don't know. I just like this part of the image. Um, some nice like hair details here, a little like hair hidden here. Yeah. Some nice subsurface scattering on this ketchup. I mean, yeah, like it's pretty straightforward. Here's like this is actually an image that was like an extra. Like this wasn't part of the project. This is just something I did. Had some free time. And I mean, I pretty much just zoomed in on that drop that I was talking about and just rendered it with like a heavy depth of field. Yeah, I mean, I really like this image. Here's here's the breakdown. This was also this was all made in 3ds Max, Tyflow, a little bit of Photoshop for post production, and rendered in F-Storm. Sorry. And yeah, and so this was like a materials pass, I believe it's called. I don't even know. And honestly, this just shows you can see like the different like pattern geometry here, and then like the hair scattered on top, and then like larger hair scattered on top of that. Just to kind of show like how, and this is the same pass, like a materials pass. To show, so you have like this. I don't know if you can see this like faint like gradient. That's like the stain shader. It's like driven by like a distance texture here. And then you have like these. There's 2 different materials on like this pattern that's just been like basically instanced and duplicated, thousands of times. And honestly, if you zoom way out, you can see some like repeating pattern here. But like once if you're at like full resolution, it's hard to see the repeating pattern. And like this, like I have like little like bits of like fabric scattered here, like just fabric bits like here. And like honestly, see if you can see it. We zoom in like here. I don't know if you can see this on the image. Let me get like a different brush. Yeah, so this like I have these little like red bits here, and it's just like different like microfiber hairs, and like you're getting this I believe it's like a sheen effect. I mean, like I know like in shader like there's like sheen parameters. You get like that velvety or like that cloth effect where most people use like a fall off like in their diffuse or whatever. I mean, like this is all done with geometry. Like this is like naturally having this nice effect. Yeah, I have like threads that are like popping out. Here's some like yellow bits. Here's like a large hair from like someone's head. Just a bunch of like extra details that like if someone was to zoom in on this, I mean you'd see all this stuff. I mean that's just. I've talked about that before. That's where my passion lies, is adding all those details. I mean, there's so many like hairs and stuff here. Yeah. And I guess what I'll do is I'll open up another Photoshop file to kind of then break down like the step-by-step thought process behind this image. So yeah. Okay, so this was the start of the project pretty much. I mean, pretty much the brief was pretty much it's gonna be a zoomed in close up of a suit, and it was the slogan "Messy Eater?" question mark was gonna be the main focus, and I mean obviously it got a little bit more detailed and the idea got more fleshed out as the project went along, but this is pretty much what I started with, and this is what I do for most of my projects. Essentially, this is like the same thing as like a frame buffer history or whatever it's called in your render engine. I like just doing it in Photoshop because I mean you can like draw here. Sorry, you can like draw on this, write notes or whatever, and like this file can be sent to other people with your own notes as well. I mean everyone has Photoshop, and this is just the way I like to do things. Also like let's say I stop working at like 8 or 9 p.m. I'll keep Photoshop open with all of these, different these work in progress images, and like I'll just randomly open them up and my PC and like just look at it and be like, okay, like this looked good 2 hours ago, but does it look good now? And kind of what I do every night before I turn off my PC or before I go to sleep, I use a lot of notepads, like on the computer notepad. I used to use like physical notepads as well, but I'll use notepads or Obsidian, if you know what that is. And right before I go to sleep, I do a render notes list, and I just look at this image and I go, okay, this looks like shit, but why does it look like shit? And it's like, okay, this looks so fucking bad. I don't even know what this is. This tube right here. This also, these fabrics are the same, and I don't like it. I want to change these fabrics. These colors, client's not really feeling these colors either. I'm not really feeling these colors either. And like this pattern is pretty cool here. It's not bad. And also like this pattern here is not bad either. I probably want to change this pattern, even though this doesn't even look that bad either. But it's like kind of like just zooming in and just taking notes, right? And then what I do is the first thing I do when I work the next day is I fix all those things, right? And then I start, once that list is done, then it's, you start a new list, and you do another like I call it like a renders note like checklist. That's usually what like I name it. And yeah, and so this was like the first, which obviously the image didn't start here. There was tons of like moving this up and down and stuff. This color, getting the composition right. Like obviously didn't just like spawn these things in and hit render. But like, yeah, this was like a work in progress screenshot or image, right? Next here was changing the colors. We decided to go on like a black suit. We decided to go on like a black suit and make this light a little bit more yellowish. And I believe, yeah, I changed the pattern and like shader on this collar piece right here, and you can see that if I'm turning that off and on. And like most of these images, I mean, this project, I worked on this project for a little bit less than 2 weeks. So like some of these renders, normally I like to do like one final render before bed, or I'll do one in the morning before I start working, just to get like a really good idea of what I have. Then here it was just still dialing in the colors. I mean, this render was pretty pointless. I pretty much just changed the color of this. Here I am doing a crop render for this fabric here. Trying to think if anything else was done here. I guess this fabric was changed here as well. And what I'll do is I'll open up 3ds Max to show you what I'm talking about when I say fabric pattern. Okay, so now that we're in 3ds Max, this is what I was talking about when I was saying the fabric pattern. Because like I said, let me pull up Photoshop again. This is all geometry. This isn't done in shader. And do I like to go next level and above and beyond and make things complicated? Of course. But I genuinely, I mean, there's no disrespect, but like, fabric shaders in 3D like feel very far behind. Like there's no dedicated fabric shader in like any of like the main render engines, which like I feel like fabric is like one of the most common things in 3D. Or at least for like characters and stuff. Maybe not one of the most common, but like I would feel like they would need some type of like dedicated fabric shader. Like, I was always taught for fabrics, you put your diffuse into a fall off map and you make the edges brighter and then the main area darker, or just, whatever color you want. And you can see that happening here, but there's no shader tricks here. This is actual geometry. These hairs are essentially becoming more reflective as you're getting closer to 90 degrees, and you're getting this really cool effect here. And like, most people, well, I mean, obviously, I'm working in like 8K resolution. I'm super zoomed in. So like, I couldn't just use displacement or bump, right? Like, using actual geometry here was, it was kind of my plan from the start, but like I had to. And so like the geometry I used here, you can kind of, there's a lot of like hair scattered on top of this, but you can kind of see the main pattern here, in which basically like the idea for this came from, I looked up, I believe like polyester cotton suit, like under microscope, or I don't remember what I typed in on Google, but you get these really cool images of like actual fabric patterns under or not a microscope, sorry, oh no, it is microscope. Sorry, I didn't know if I said telescope. Yeah, microscope. And you can see this really cool weaving pattern, and like you know you can kind of see here that I'm trying to replicate what's going on here, and a lot of the basis of my work is basing it off reality. Um, and I believe I had a couple of different fabric patterns that I used in this project. I mean, I want to say, I off the top of my head, that like there's a different pattern. Well, the suit and this are different patterns for sure, and I believe this was a completely different pattern as well for the collar as well. But yeah, and so I just wanted to show that, like, and that was done with FStorm Geo pattern. If anyone uses FStorm, I mean, you're essentially just cloning, a single piece of geometry, hundreds and thousands of times, over top of another piece of geometry. I mean, yeah, like I'm not gonna go too much into the technical stuff. It's pretty easy to set up. It's really fast to render. Actually, oh yeah, I recorded this video. Let me make sure this shows up on OBS. Okay. And this is me rendering in FStorm, just zooming in, and like, I mean, I think at this point I'm zoomed in like 5,000 times, or I don't even remember the number. I mean, look, you can go even further. You can see, like, I mean, I wasn't lying. It's all geometry, And it's, let me pull up this reference again. It's it's not 1-to-1, obviously, but like you can see, we're getting pretty close, on how zoomed in this was. And like something that I noticed, that like the higher quality the fabrics, the less like messier fabrics you got. Yeah, that was just a little bonus note. But yeah, I guess I'll play this whole video. And this is just me zooming in on different parts. I mean, like you can see how detailed this is. Like this stuff is, yeah, shit's cool. I won't lie. Zooming in on my favorite drop here. Yeah, and I just wanted to show, and that's what's cool about using, actual geometry here, is I can go this zoomed in. You can see like here and here I have like little like stray pieces of like strings from a different piece of fabric, or just like lint or whatever that's just fallen onto this fabric. You see a yellow piece right here. Yeah, just the details, the deal, the drill. Yeah, so let's hop back into Photoshop. Yeah, so started with this. We're slowly, basically just dialing in the fabric pattern and dialing in the colors here. More crop renders. At this point, I'm starting to change this horrendous thing to the right. That's supposed to be a tie. In which, like, you'll notice this a lot throughout my process. Like, this is shit, but this was done in 2 minutes. It's just for proof of concept, right? I'm trying to lay out the building blocks. I'm concepting, essentially, right? That's what that is. So I'm starting to dial in the shape a bit. You can see here that, like, I'm adding shape here, just from like reference that I have, and then I'm starting to get like that tie look. And like the thing is, for this project is like it doesn't have to be like the most realistic thing you've ever seen in the world, right? Like this is an image that like it's never going to look super realistic. And I mean like a 1-to-1 photo, because like taking a photo like this, I mean, like, I don't think I've ever seen a photo that looks like this before, right? But I wanted to have realistic qualities, but also have a bit of like a stylized look to it as well, right? It's an advertisement. It's supposed to look cool. And this is actually something that RenderRam, someone that I shouted out in my last video, he talked about this in one of his latest videos, which is like, it's always cool to like someone that you look up to is like, oh, this is what I do, or like these are things that I do that helps me, and it's like I already do those things, so it's like reassuring it. I don't know, it just feels good. But yeah, like flipping your image, man, I can't tell you how important this is, just to get a different perspective, which I think this is fun to talk about. I personally liked this composition better. I was really pushing for this composition for the final image. I really liked having all this on the left and then fading into black. But yeah, unfortunately, you don't have control over every aspect of an image when you're working on it, especially with a client, which is fine. And so at this point, I'm starting to dial in the fabric more. Obviously, we're getting like some pretty bad tiling here. Um, this is starting to look kind of cool. It's different. You know, I was looking at a lot of different fabric examples, and like I don't remember the type of fabric where you get like this very shiny, like almost like suede look. I believe it's called. Maybe not actually. But yeah, let me just. Okay, yeah, you can see that like I'm making this necktie smaller here, changing up the shader, and like I'm just showing you like bit by bit, and like I'm getting feedback on these different parts of the image. You know, obviously I'm taking my own feedback. Yeah, and just like getting these shapes looking good. I believe here I started to scatter. These were like fuzz balls, or like they're like pretty giant hairs. I don't think they ended up staying, but it's what I'm really trying to do is break up the repetition, right? Because I'm scattering that single. I'm scattering this single block, hundreds and thousands of times, and it's rotated randomly a few times to break up the pattern. But like, you still get that repeating look. But like scattering, then more variation of hairs on top, it starts to break up that pattern. And that's what I was trying to do there. And I did that all over the image. Here was like a full test render, and like at this point of the image, like this was like the green light of like, okay, like you're on to something, or like this is looking good. This has promise, right? It doesn't look great yet, but it has promise. And these are parts of the project for me that are like really motivating, right? Because it's like it's not shit enough to scrap and start over, and it's good enough to like motivate you to like finish the project, or not finish the project, but like keep going. At this point, we are. I believe I change like every single one of these renders. I believe I'm changing this bottom pattern here. This pattern was changed. There's hair scattered on top. This light is brighter. There's hairs scattered, which these look a little big. I'm sure I scaled these down. There's hairs scattered on this collar. I'm adding some more geometry here for this tie. This tie was giving me a lot of issues just because like it was really hard to, without having the full tie in focus. And like honestly, this angle looked very weird to me. Like I really liked the flipped version of this. I really enjoyed this. And yeah, if I didn't say this earlier, like I'm constantly flipping this image while I'm like looking at it in Photoshop. And like what I'm doing right now is I'm Control Zing to undo it, and then Control Shift Zing to redo it. Yeah, that's just what I do. And so yeah, the next part. So here I am just doing like a full clean render just to see what I have so far. I'm really liking how this fabric is reacting to the light. It's fabric strands are very, very reflective on certain fabrics, right? And you're getting this really cool effect where like it's pretty dull over here, and then as this bright spotlight is coming down, you get this gradient effect, right? And it just looks super nice. Oh, also here I'm adding so this is another really very quick concepting idea, right? This collar needed like sewing lines or whatever they're called, like you know what I'm talking about. And I pretty much just extruded some of these polys and then subdivided them. And like these are basically just spheres on the surface right now, but like I'm just seeing how this looks like zoomed out. Because like the thing is, like this advertisement, wherever it ends up, like no one's gonna be walking around with a magnifying glass and being like, oh, I see some, oh, like this, this looks a bit off, or this looks off. Like, maybe like 3D artists, but like, I'm seeing how it looks from zoomed out, how most people are gonna be viewing it. And so at this point, once again, when I'm talking about shitty concepting, this was done in like less than 5 minutes. I just wanted to see how, because this was also another big part of the project where like, okay, getting essentially the environment, which is the environment for this project is the suit, right? Yeah, I can get it to look okay, right? But will the stains look good, right? And this was okay. Like this was pretty much, I think this was just like a texture extruded out, subdivided a few times with some noise added onto it with like a really basic shader. But it was quick. I could show it to the client be like, hey, this is what it's, this is what I have so far. This is what I'm working on. This is, what the stains are possibly going to look like, right? And like obviously, like they know this looks like shit, but like this is like concepting, right? And so from here, and like once again, like I'm kind of jumping around, like I believe this was like in between days or maybe like a weekend. Here I'm starting to like really get the shape of the tie better. It looks a lot more natural like this. I mean, it looks way better. Yeah. And then here I'm just adjusting the size of it. Nothing really changes over here. I'm just adjusting. And like these renders like are pretty important because it's this is like a main piece of the composition that I'm working on. So I'm scaling it down a bit. Here, I believe this was a design choice by somebody else. To have the collar go over the tie, which normally does happen in most suits. So yeah, that was fine. Yeah, you see what that's doing. Once again, I'm flipping it. I really love this angle. I still love this angle. I might honestly render this project out with this angle for my own portfolio. I hope they don't mind. Yeah, I mean, I really like this angle a lot more. But yeah, once again, just flipping the image just to see if anything sticks out, anything looks bad, anything looks good, if anything's missing, you know the deal. At this point, okay, so at this point, I'm actually working more on the shape of the tie. I actually kind of like this shape a little bit better now that I'm looking at this. But the composition for this looks a lot cleaner, I think. The tie looks a bit like I'm almost certain that this isn't the final version of the tie because I don't like it. I'm just predicting that I'm adding, yeah, I did add some surface deformation to this. This is just a noise applied to it. It's a bit too much. Yep, and I did lower it a bit. I mean, even though I worked on this, like I don't remember these renders to be honest. But yeah, like you can just see like even like real time, like my thought process looking at it, like it's nice to like reassure yourself, I guess, that like these changes are good. Whoops. Once again here, oh yeah, I think this was just rendered without the hairs on top just to speed up the render. I rendered this with some of the hair scattered on top. And like once again, these hairs, I'm not even sure how realistic these hairs are. Like when you're zoomed in on fabric, there's a lot of hairs, and they look cool. I won't lie. Like right here, they're a bit much. I'm sure I dialed these back. Like this stuff looks really cool to me. And the client liked it. Like it gives it like that macro feel of like you're really zoomed in on this. Yeah, and so these hairs, I either lowered the opacity like of the whole. No, these hairs were actually just smaller. Now that I'm looking at this, yeah. So I dialed those back a bit. So at this point, I'm starting to add surface imperfections to this tie. So you can see this little red dot. It's not fully rendered, obviously, but like these are those red strands I was talking about. There's like red, yellow, and blue, like random like lint strands that are scattered. And then also, it might be hard to see, but this right here, this little thing sticking up, is basically just like little threads from the fabric, just to basically vary up the surface. And you can see turning those off and on, like in this area right here. Yeah. And yeah, like I mean, once again, like it's you're starting with very basic concepts, and you're just building upon them, adding detail and detail and detail and detail. And I kind of showed you my process of like I do a bunch of stuff, I render it, and then I make a list of like, okay, what looks good. And like the thing is, being really hard on yourself or being very critical of your own work is a double-edged sword. A lot of times you don't have a lot of confidence in your own work, which is something that has definitely gotten better for me over this year, which making these videos helps me gain confidence as well. But also like being very critical of your own work lets you be honest. If something looks like absolute shit, I don't want to put it out. I don't want to show it to a client. I at least want to give it my best effort to make it not look bad. So yeah. Yeah, so these are the surface, these threads that are sticking out. So here, once again, just on the list of things to do, this, I mean, this is like no shader applied. I'm pretty sure this is just like random spheres scattered here or like extruded. Getting like proper threading down. And I believe there's a shader applied to that. I thought about doing a white thread here, but it stood out too much. I think I even did like a test render of it, and I just instantly canceled it. But this is looking pretty good. I hope that I'm using the right word, threading. I feel like that is the right word. I don't know, like the sewing threads. I don't know. And at this point, and like at these points when you see like a fully rendered image, like no noise, like I pretty much actually, I think at some point, like, I see this large hair scattered here. I don't know if this was ever kept in the final render, but, like, I scattered, like, large hairs everywhere. I don't think they looked good in the final render just because they were too big. They look fine, like, zoomed out, but, yeah, like, when you see an image like this is something that's sent to the client, right? And to get, like, feedback on. And at this point, this is all looking super solid. This obviously hasn't been worked on at all. This was just concept. This is looking super solid. Once again, flipping it, still trying to convince them to go with this look. Yeah, it didn't happen. So once again, shitty concept, but this right here is there is a lot done in this image here. So one was working on a shader, right? Subsurface scattering in FStorm doesn't have the most controls. It renders relatively fast. It doesn't look horrible. This looks like okay. It looks like more like marinara sauce than ketchup, which is what we were going for was ketchup. But what I've done here is one. Well, see, you see these are procedural stains, right? Like this is all done with distance maps. So like wherever I scattered the ketchup, I could leave these stains behind. And now these stains, in theory, they look really nice, right? In theory, these stains would only be left here if one, the ketchup stain was like left there for a long time and it's kind of seeping into the fabric. And two, if the ketchup has been like smudged, right? So like there's almost like a logical shading sense to it, to where like like this probably wouldn't look like this in reality, where you have this big glob here and then it's just like seeping down, unless it's like actually marinara sauce. Like I think actual ketchup, which like if I had like unlimited budget, unlimited time for this project, I would actually gone and bought some white t-shirts from Walmart and like stained them with ketchup and got like perfect reference. But yeah, I just didn't have time for that. But stuff like this image right here shows a lot of proof of concept of like, okay, I can stain the fabric procedurally. It looks pretty good. And then also this geometry here. This geometry was all created with a single texture in Tyflow. So like basically my idea for this was one, I just drew a bunch of random shapes in Photoshop and then took that into Tyflow, and then essentially I shot spheres from this surface and then meshed them together to make this like liquid looking shape. Now the original idea for this project that I proposed, I wanted to hire a like logo designer or some type of graphic artist to create almost like an illusion logo, where like I basically wanted the words, if I go to the final product here, I essentially wanted Messy Eater had to be like, that's the whole slogan for this ad campaign, right? So I wanted the words Messy Eater to be in the shape of a stain, right? So like imagine we had a stain that, let me just do something like this. So imagine we had a stain that's like, I don't know, shaped like this, right? And then you had the words like messy, like, do you see where I'm going with this? Like we had the words like Messy Eater that's like all conformed to fit like in the shape, right? And like I wanted it to be almost like an illusion where like you're looking at it and it just looks like a stain, but like the longer you look at it, you eventually see like, oh wait, there's an E in there. Wait, there's an M. Wait, there's a question mark. And like you see the words Messy Eater, right? And now, once again, we don't have unlimited time. We have deadlines. That wasn't, well, it was a cool idea, but it wasn't something that was going to be possible. And because like the thing is that I spent a whole day working on this image right here, or this screenshot, in which if someone was able to develop a 2D logo like I was describing here, um, I would be able to extrude that and essentially change it into liquid. Because I know like hiring someone for just a liquid sim or some type of um, like I guess ketchup sim. If there's any expert ketchup simulators out there, hit me up next time. I might have a project for you. But yeah, like it's. I mean, this doesn't look bad, or sorry, the final doesn't look bad. Obviously, like I'm happy with this. It would have looked a lot better hand modeled. And which some of this is hand modeled, like it is like push and pulled. But most of this is generated with Tyflow. And so like if I had someone design like a 2D logo with what I was talking about, which like I kind of this was like my attempt at it. Obviously this isn't really like a stain shape. And like this was obviously like the Y is too messed up. And like this is a bit too messy as well. Like you can't read the full message, which like this is the part of the image that I had the least amount of control on. Which like is fine. Like I get it. Like it's you're trying to deliver a message at the end of the day. Sorry, I just I don't know what I just swallowed. I swallowed a hairball. But yeah, like you're trying to deliver a message at the end of the day. Like it can't be like sorry, this is a good way to explain it. Imagine you have a spectrum, right? And on one side of the spectrum you have the words messy eater, right? And on the other side of the spectrum you just have a ketchup stain. The goal was to find something in the middle. I kind of wanted something more towards the stain, like 70% towards the stain, and the client wanted something like 30% more towards the message, right? So obviously we went with the client, and this is kind of sort of the final shape we ended on. The Y is still a little bit messy here, but it's like if you can make out the MESS and then EATER question mark, you probably can figure out that's a Y. But yeah, like. And like these little like blobs start to look good. This shader needs a bit of work, obviously, but and this was just like I think like a 4 or 8K like crop render just to see how it's looking close up. Yeah, and like you start to see like this fabric looks excellent in my opinion. I mean like and this point of the image, like it's I'm really liking how it's turning out. Even with like we weren't able to get exactly what I wanted. That's fine. Not everything works out like that. Here's another test render with this shader's looking more like blood almost, or like strawberry jelly. But like you can start to see like I'm getting like globs and like dots and like I'm starting to make it look really messy. I mean I'm getting this one little drop here that looks nice. I believe the shape has changed a bit. Actually, the shape is relatively the same. Actually, I'm just changing the shader a bit. Yeah, I mean, this shader is looking a little bit better, not exactly to the final, or not exactly to what I wanted to. Oh yeah, so at this point, like I said, this is one image that I worked on in a series of images. This was like a last minute design change that got scrapped, but is basically going to be like a spotlight like on the t-shirt where it's like like your stains stick out, or like everyone sees your stains on your shirt, like use this cleaner or whatever, right? Which this doesn't look that good. This is just for concept. This might have even been done in Photoshop now that I think about it. I don't think I think this was just painted over in Photoshop, like in a different file. Actually, no, this was actually done in F-Storm. I can see it actually. Yeah, but it's gonna be like a spotlight. Here's just another close up. I'm starting to dial in like these stain marks. Which these all look really good. I talked about like the logicalness behind them. I mean, there's still some errors here that like I think eventually. Well, I eventually did fix these. Like this is like lifted up here. This is a bit lifted here. Yeah, it's not perfect. I'm not like a master at like liquid sims. Or I mean, this is not even a liquid simulation. I mean, something like this would be cool to learn in Houdini. Like, I mean, I know a little bit of Houdini and not enough to like ever be confident with it. I mean, I haven't used it in a while, but I feel like there's some like vellum trick, or not trick, some like vellum setup you could do with like letters and then simulate them like splattering on like a surface. That would be pretty cool. I mean, Tyflow is something that I use daily that I know, and like I was able to produce this within less than a day. And it looks, stuff like this looks pretty solid. Um, and then yeah, this obviously wasn't the final, right? This is the final. Which if I swap between these two, the shader is slightly different. The stain marks are slightly different. And then obviously you have like the post-production. But like this was close to the final, this was one of the last images shown to the client before I did the final rendering and the post-production. And yeah, like I hope that gives like a really good insight to like my thought process on everything. I know it might be frustrating to not see like the technical stuff behind it. Um, you know, I'll reiterate this 100 times. There's probably better tutorials out there on how to do this stuff. Like obviously not this specific image. I don't think there's a tutorial out there for it. If there is, I wish I would have seen it. No, but like creating this fabric and stuff, I'm sure there is. Well, there's definitely like FStorm tutorials on how to use GeoPattern, right? And that's what I use for that. I use GeoPattern. There's TyFlow tutorials on how to like generate like liquid and stuff, right? It's probably the same concepts as this, Scattering hairs and fibers. I'm literally just scattering hairs and fibers, like with. I think I used TyFlow, or I might have used FStorm Scatter. I don't remember. But yeah, like it's this image was more about the ideas and like the thought process behind it, right? And I hope it was helpful. I'm probably gonna cut the video here. I didn't want it to be another 2-hour video. I kind of just wanted to go through with what I had. I'm really happy with this result. I appreciate if I was gonna say you can share and like this video. I don't really care. You can subscribe if you want. One day I might take YouTube serious and like really go in. I'd love to do series on like different topics like dust or surface imperfections and just do like 10 just do like 10 1-hour videos and just do 10 hours of like the most extreme 3D shit that you can think of. I just like really not in a place right now where I can do YouTube. I have to make a living. I guess that if there's anyone watching this video that wants to have me on any projects, you've seen my work, you know where to contact me, hit me up. I mentioned this before. I actually landed a project from my last video, which was cool. Someone reached out to me. So yeah, I'm also coming into the next year, 2024. I'm looking for someone to work with on projects. Mostly just advertising stuff. Even like the most like basic, boring like product stuff. I really want someone to work on projects with. Not only like someone to learn from them, and they can also learn from me. Like basically teach each other what we know. But just jam out on projects on. Yeah, if you're interested in that, email me, DM me on Twitter, Instagram, leave a YouTube comment, or just hit me somewhere. Hopefully I'll see it. And yeah, thanks for watching, I guess. Peace.